linking the last class about poverty, we have studied poverty, the meaning of poverty, that is the introduction to poverty, and who are poor, categories of poor. Then also we have studied the number of poor people in India. So after studying all this, definitely we have to know what causes poverty, or what are the reasons for the people to become poor. And in this session, we read what causes poverty, and after reading this, we have to understand what are the policies and programs that has been initiated from the government to alleviate poverty. Then, a critical assessment in the poverty alleviation program. Okay, usually what causes poverty, this you keep on studying from your high schools. Okay, let's see. The causes of poverty lies in the institution and social factor that marks the life of the poor people. The poor are deprived of education, proper healthcare facilities, sanitation. So we know poverty is a situation where people are deprived of food, shelter, clothing, health, education, and sometimes even their rights and freedoms. In this, first let us know what causes poverty, or what is the reason behind the people who are always poor. In this, the first one is social, economic and political cause. Now, social, economic and political cause in this many factors includes the discriminatory among the gender and the caste, the religion and some of the religious practices, blind beliefs, that includes in the social factor. And in the economic factors, coming to the economic factors, poor people are not engaged in effective productive activity, the activity which bring an additional income or more income. Usually poor people are engaged in such an economic activity where they get a less income. And political, even politically also, poor people are not stable. They can't raise their voice against the exploitation that is happening to their community. So this is about social, economic and political factor. Now let's see the social exclusion. Social exclusion is a process where an individual is blocked for his rights and opportunities. And unemployment, we can give this more marks for why the poor or the poverty is more. As we know, one of the challenging issues what the world and India is facing is poverty, unemployment, rural development and infrastructure. Among them, related to poverty, we can say unemployment is directly related to poverty. If a people or if a section of people are unemployed, definitely it will hamper their source of income, thereby they will be living in such a condition they couldn't even earn their livelihood. Next we have indebtedness. This is a condition where the poor people borrow money from the money lenders or even sometimes from the bank, but they couldn't repay the loan back. So this leads them to a chronic indebtedness among the poor people. And unequal distribution of wealth. Yes, students, we know a few wealth is concentrated among the more people, and a large wealth is concentrated among very few people. That is, we can say that 30% of the wealth are distributed among the 70% of the people, and the 70% of wealth is just under 30% of the people. The lot of unequal distribution of wealth has led to poverty. Fine. Now, coming back to the urban poverty and rural poverty, first we should know who are the urban poors. Okay, who are the urban poors? The poors who migrate from the rural areas in search of job and livelihood. We know that the poor, especially in rural areas, they always engaged in agriculture and non-agricultural work there. We know that agriculture laborers are only employed during certain seasons, and always they have a seasonal employment. So in the unseason, where they do not get employment, they migrate to the urban areas, that is cities, and here they do a lot variety of casual wage workers. In the casual wage worker, they also do a very limited or very less income work. So the urban poor are nothing but they are migrated from the rural areas or nearby villages. Some of the example of the urban poor are beggars, pushcart vendors, street vendors, rag pickers. Yes, of course, in the rural areas the poor people are the workers who work in other forms. They are the people who have a very less land. Okay, usually the land in the rural poor have very small land holdings, along with that fragmentation. Fragmentation of land also leads to immense poverty. Okay, Britishers who came to India was also one of the reason what we are in this situation. Britishers plundered the resources of India. They plundered the large resources of India. Our resources or our industries work to produce just as a exporter of cotton yarn instead of cotton cloths. Once the cotton yarn is exported to England, from there we used to get the finished cloths. So Indian market was a sprawling market for the British finished goods. So this led many families, especially with the industries, the small scale industry or the cottage industry, the family members thrown to the streets of India. Poverty, or we can say a vicious circle of poverty, is just because one of the reason what the Britishers who ruled us. But still it is a debated topic, still the debate is going on, but definitely the British rule has got a negative impact on our economy and the standard of living of the people. As over 70% of the Indians were engaged in agriculture during the British rule. 70% of the Indians still during the British rule were engaged in agriculture, and now 50% of them still depend on agriculture. During the British rule, as India was just a mere exporter of raw materials, and also they start exporting the food grains. Once they start exporting the food grains, in 1975 to 1900, there was a severe famine in India where millions of people died out of hunger and starvation, especially in the states of West Bengal. Millions together, that is 2 crore 50 lakh people died. That is 25 million people died out of hunger and starvation due to the export of goods to other countries, especially England. Even today, agriculture is a principal means of livelihood of a farmers. But speaking to the condition of farmers, the government has attempted to redistribute land among the people who don't have land, from taking back the land from those who have a large amount of land. But this was not successful. The rich landlords who had more land, they were not willing to give the land to the laborers. Tillers are the owners of the land. Even under this scheme, many landlords or zamindars were not willing to give back the land to the poor people. The agricultural workers were not able to farm a small land holdings during those days. And the Green Revolution also couldn't support the small and marginal farmers. So this was a main reason why the people in the rural areas were to remain as a poor. You must have heard about the suicides committing by the farmers in the rural areas. Farmers, when they borrow loans from the money lenders or from the bank, they couldn't repay them. Maybe the reason why they are borrowing is maybe for cultivation purpose or maybe for their domestic needs. But to repay the loan, they should get a good amount of the grains what they grow. Most members in the rural areas do not get a proper stuff to sell. This is mainly because the people in the rural areas, mostly they depend on monsoon. Sometimes if there is more rain, then also it is a problem. If there is no rain, it leads to drought or famine where there won't be any food grains. Once the farmers get a proper stuff, they can sell it and repay the loan back. So this is one of the important reason why the farmer commits suicide. Most members of the scheduled castes and scheduled tribes, usually they are unskilled and illiterates. Once they lack the literacy or skills, they cannot engage in the productive economic activity. A large section of the urban poor in India, as I told, they are the overflow from the rural areas. Poverty is therefore, it is closely related with the employment. So unemployment is one of the key role or major cause of poverty. A steep rise in the price of food grains and other essential goods. A rise in the food grains and other essential goods as a rate higher the price of luxury goods. Sometimes it happens. All this has created two distinct groups in the society. Those who possess means of production and earn good income, and those who are laborers who just survive by doing trade. So this brings a lot of gap between the rich and the poor in the different communities. So poverty is a multi-dimensional challenge for India that need to be addressed on a war foldings. Policies and programs towards poverty alleviation. As we know, any research problems or any problem, once the data are collected, after seeing the data, there should be definitely a solution to any of the problem. So, the policies and programs toward poverty alleviation. Usually this question will be asked for more marks. The Indian Constitution and 5-year plan states social justice as a primary strategies of the development. Maybe in the first 5-year plan and even the second 5-year plan, the more importance was given to the social justice by uplifting the poor people and implementing some of the rules and bringing them into the mainstreams of the economy. So in this way, both the 5-year plans or many of the 5-year plans still today it is striving. In this, some of the strategies the government has implemented to reduce poverty and provide a minimum standard of living to the people. These are some of the programs. Among them, the first program is growth-oriented approach. So this is the very first program introduced by the government through the Green Revolution and encouraging the industries. So through many ways, the growth-oriented approach has been initiated. Second approach is income employment generation approach. Income and employment generation approach. The growth-oriented approach did not satisfy much. Hence, they planned of generating in the way of generating extra asset or additional income to the poor people. They have started income employment and generation approach. Third one would be providing minimum basic amenities to the poor people. This is the third approach. Let's study what is a growth-oriented approach. The growth-oriented approach was initiated with an idea of increasing the GDP, that is gross domestic product. The intention here was once the GDP has increased, that leads to equal distribution of income among the poor section. That is through the 5-year plans. The 5-year plans which was envisaged, that has spent a lot of resources through the many schemes to alleviate poverty. But unfortunately, growth-oriented approach did not get much fruit out of that. That mainly because of the unequal distribution of land or the work that is done by the poor people with very, very less productivity and low capital. So, the growth-oriented approach was not that successful, and the government started the income and employment generation approach. Among the income and employment generation approach, we have two distinct features. One among them is providing self-employment to the poor people. This is one among them, and wage employment to the people, both in the rural areas and urban areas. Some of the programs are for rural areas and some for the urban areas. In that, let's see the first program that was introduced in the year 1970 was Food for Work. The Food for Work was initiated for the first time, and then it was upgraded Rural Employment Guarantee Program, REGP, that is Rural Employment Guarantee Program. So, this is one of the self-employment. Under this program, anybody wants to start a self-employment, they used to provide a financial assistance to them. This Rural Employment Guarantee Program was initiated with the help of Khadi Village Industries Commission. So, the Khadi Village Industry Commission was initiated to provide rural employment guarantee program to the rural youths. Next we have Prime Minister Rozgar Yojana. Prime Minister Rozgar Yojana, that is, an educated unemployed used to get the assistance from the government, that is from the banks, to start any of the employment. And next we had the Swarna Jayanti Shahari Rozgar Yojana. Swarna Jayanti Shahari Rozgar Yojana, and also we had self-help groups. Self-help groups, Swasahaya Sanghagalu, that is SHGs. So in the self-help groups, what happens? A few members of this group used to save certain amount every month or every week. So once they collect, or the pooled money or the pooled savings, that will be given as a loan with the members itself. After certain years, the bank, the government through the bank used to provide loan for the members of the self-help groups. The self-help groups are both in the rural areas and urban areas. So this is providing a financial assistance to the poor people. Next we have Swarna Jayanti Gram Swarozgar Yojana. Swarna Jayanti Gram Swarozgar Yojana is also one of the poverty alleviation program. Okay. National Rural Livelihood Machine, National Urban Livelihood Machine. So, Swarna Jayanti Gram Swarozgar Yojana has been bifurcated as rural and urban programs. Okay. Next we have the very important program which was introduced in the year 2005. According to this program, the Parliament passed a new act in 2005, Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act. So, according to this act, a member in a very poor family, an adult, an unskilled labor, he used to get 100 days employment guarantee. So, the people who are interested in this program, they used to register their name in the nearby locality where this program was implemented. So, minimum wages was guaranteed for 100 days by this program. Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act. So, these are some of the programs. After this, they introduced providing minimum basic needs just to meet the consumption standard of the poor people and to provide the nutritious food. Related to this program, this was widely done with the public distribution system. So, India's public distribution system is very big public distribution system among the world. Through this, the goods were given at the subsidized price for the very poor people, that is below poverty line people. Next we have ICDS, that is Integrated Child Development Scheme, that is midday meal scheme. So, many of us comes under this midday meal scheme also. Along with this, we have Pradhana Mantri Gram Yojana. Pradhana Mantri Gramodaya Yojana was one such program, and Pradhana Mantri Grama Sadak Yojana. So, these are the programs which is going to provide the infrastructure in the rural areas. Pradhana Mantri Gramodaya Yojana is also one such program which provide or which improve the lives of the poor in the village. Also we have Valmiki Ambedkar Awas Yojana. So, along with this Yojana, that provide shelter to the poor people in the rural villages. And also we have a wide variety of programs under this minimum basic needs. One among that is National Social Assistance Program. So according to this National Social Assistance Program, people, the elderly people or the senior citizens, they used to get a pension plan. Pensions will be given to them, those who nobody is there to take care of them. And under that scheme, a destitute and a widow, poor women, she also is covered under such program. So National Social Assistance Program is going to provide an elderly pension to sustain the lives of the poor people. Along this program, from 2014, a new scheme was introduced, that is Pradhana Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana. In the Pradhana Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana, in which the poor Indians are encouraged to open a bank account, where the government's policy or some of the schemes will be covered under this program, where the beneficiaries directly get their benefits through that account. And 1 lakh accidental death insurance was covered under the people who have registered under Jan Dhan Yojana, and 30,000 life insurance was covered under this. Lastly, we have come to last concept, that is Poverty Alleviation Program, a critical assessment. Even though after implementing so many programs, a wide variety of programs, poverty in India compared to other developing countries, it is not up to the mark. It has not created any benchmark in reducing the vicious circle of poverty. Even today, some of the people are still striving to have a square meals a day. Some people don't even have a proper shelter to live in it. Some economist notes that the bank officials and the government officials who have to implement this program are ill motivated, they are corruption prone, lack of resource. Due to all these problems, poverty alleviation programs are not implemented properly. The resources are not properly utilized in some states, and in some states even the resources are utilized, it is not sufficient. So these are some of the drawbacks in the poverty alleviation program. And some rural areas, the land, because of fragmented and small land holdings or the marginal farmers, the proper implementation of the policies are not able. These are some of the drawbacks of the policy to implement. Coming to the conclusion, government policies has failed to address the vast majority of vulnerable section of the people. So we have traveled 7 decades since independence, where majority of the people, poor people's life is not satisfactory. They are not having the minimum standard of living. We are still far reaching the goal. There is an improvement in terms of per capita income and average standard of living. Yet, there is many who have not overcome from the vicious circle of poverty.